walk like that. I think I'm just going to, these little coats like this, you know. Glasses on the end of their nose. And they went, Dr. Bandler, do you expect us to believe the claims you've made about working with schizophrenics? And I go, and grab them by the balls, squeeze real tight, and I said, what do you think? And they go, I have a tendency to believe that you would actually do this sort of stuff. And I said, right. Any other questions? But to them, they like to talk about stuff because, you see, when they start to experiment, they start with a theory to find out what's going on. Guess what Richard did? Richard got the yogurt to not know the other yogurt was fed, and it took me 2 minutes. I said, okay, where's all this yogurt you're working with? And they said, it's in the kitchen. They had a 100 gallons of yogurt in various forms out there, all from the same original culture, so it was the same family of yogurt. So I said, okay, all I need is a large fish aquarium. And they said, okay, and they brought in this long fish aquarium, and I put it on the table, and I filled it full of yogurt, put yogurt on one side and yogurt on the other side, put the electrical things on there, they fed this side, the other side didn't know. And they said, what's going on? I said, well, that yogurt vibrated so much, it absorbed it. Because you didn't, if I'd have fed the tank, both sides would have gone wild. But you fed this little tiny bit over here, all the rest of the yogurt over here knew, but there wasn't enough vibration to tell enough people. You got to make a lot of noise to affect a whole people. Imagine, 30 years, I've gotten every country on the face of the world to have institutes of NLP. I've had people fighting about who gets to do it. The field of psychology, I've done nothing but insult for 35 years, and they're the main people proselytizing my work. You got to make the right kind of noise. I may insult them, but I make it feel wonderful. I make them addicted to it. I know how addiction works. And I make it so that it doesn't make them stressed out. Instead, it does one of the most important things. I told you the 2 keys to learning. First one, altered state. Endomorphemes have a sense of humor. Because even in Oxford, I could imitate them so well, I could get them to laugh. And I said, you call that a laugh? I said, you laugh like that, then you're going to have premature ejaculation. I know it. If you laugh like this, then you get to have real sex. Because understand, it's funny how they all start laughing a lot deeper. But at Oxford, they start looking at each other, so you have to wonder about that. But to me, once you can get people to laugh a little bit, you get a little endomorphemes. You alter their state. Now, I discovered maybe I could use a handshake interrupt. That works pretty good, doesn't it? Paul, that was quick. You didn't see that coming. But guess what? Even if you do, it still works. That's the cool thing. You can teach people about it and do it, and it still works. Right? I even do it to myself sometimes. I just go like this. Now, knowing how to alter your state becomes very powerful because we're just like yogurt. We're all made out of the same stuff. So I have people come in. For example, I upset a Muslim cleric. I didn't do it intentionally. I upset everyone equally, including myself. I leave no one out. I can offend absolutely anyone. My business card used to say, Richard Bandler, killer of sacred cows. Meat available. The Hindus went, you kill cows. I said, not real cows, just sacred cows, just ideas that are going beyond what makes sense. If you have a belief about yourself that says that you're not smart, you're wrong, because I don't believe it. And I'm never wrong in the end. Everybody keeps trying to prove I'm wrong about something. It's a bad gamble, because the only thing in this universe you can count on is what Einstein said about it, is that it's infinite. So therefore, if you do the right thing, you'll always find a way of doing everything. Now, the problem is all of the people that worked on the behavior of other individuals began with the other individual. They didn't begin with themselves. If you go inside and see, if you're going to work with people, I went to a place for it was called the Stress Center, and the letters even looked stressful on the sign. And I have to admit, the people inside were so stressed out, they were And this guy had this group of people, and they were all like, and they all had blood pressure and medical charts, and the doctors had said you're all going to have coronaries and die if you don't lower your blood pressure. But still, they were hostile. They were heads of corporations. It didn't matter. They were all over the top. And I went in and I said, so you guys have too much stress. Rule number 1, don't. And they said, wow, can't expect us to just stop it. I said, I bet you will. I said, I'll bet you within the next 20 minutes, you guys will be totally relaxed. And I said, let me show you how it's done. That's right. Close your eyes. There you go. See how easy that was? Yogurt knows yogurt. Relaxation knows relaxation. And guess what, David? Pleasure knows pleasure. Now, if you make thoughts inside your head that say you can't do things, well, guess what? That means you can program your mind to do anything. You can make limitations and live by them. You can feel embarrassed. You can be afraid to do things or not. You can pick the thing that would be the toughest thing in the world for you to try and do, the thing you have the least belief in yourself about. And when you think about it, if you're shy, it's walking up and talking to people, Some people say they can't play music, yet all the musicians I ever met were some of the dumbest assholes I'd ever met in my life. It can't be that hard. But you have to believe in yourself 100%, and you have to have a little bit of information. Now, in whatever it is, the first thing is the bad feeling that you've learned to have automatically is exactly the thing you have to be determined to be fed up with. Because the first thing you have to learn to laugh at is your own stupidity. And that's where I have it on everybody. I know what a fucking idiot I am. I make more jokes about me than anybody because I have more mistakes than everyone. I just happen to notice it when I do. I've done things with clients. I'm the one that hypnotized a man and tried to get rid of his ovarian cysts. My secretary put the charts in the wrong room, right? And I walked in and I looked at this thing and I said, boy, this is one of the ugliest women I've ever seen in my life. I said, well, I guess so, but, I shouldn't really criticize other people. Not everybody can be beautiful, right? So I said, now, Sue. And this guy looks over at me and he went, Sue? And I said, that's right, close your eyes now. Like that. And I said, your doctor has asked me to help you to shrink those ovarian cysts away. I want you to go inside and feel your ovaries. You should have seen the look on his face. That's right. And those cramps you've been getting every month, we can get rid of those too. The fear of pregnancy, his face is going all over the place. And I'm going, this is a very odd response for somebody who is trying to avoid a surgical intervention. Usually people are a little more receptive than that. So I walk up and I pick the chart up again and I look at it and I flip to the picture. This is not the right person. So I opened the door and I went to my secretary. And she goes, oops. Goes and switches the charts. And then that big question comes, well, now what do I do? Go in and say, yes, this is just a hypnotic metaphor. David. It just goes to show you that sometimes people goof, and when you goof, then you stop doing it. If you're doing something that's not working, if you're going inside and making feelings that stop you from doing what you most want to in life, what you need to do is to go inside and to realize, if I can look at you and make you feel relaxed, I can look at you and make you feel stupid, just like that. And if you see yourself having that feeling in that situation, and something inside you becomes so fucking determined that says, enough is enough. How many times you've done this and you've never been fucking paid a nickel for it? This is fucking ridiculous. And you can just look at yourself and finally you get to the point where you see how stupid it is and you can't help but laugh out loud. That's it. Guess what? Then you get to change it. Now, if you go to therapy and talk about it for 40 fucking years and beat up furniture, it'll never go away. But you'll have lots of reasons for why you're an asshole. A depressed asshole, a weak asshole, a whatever asshole. Doesn't matter whatever stupidity you're doing. But as soon as you start laughing, the endomorphines come up. Free drugs, David. It's like getting all your beers for free for the rest of your life. It's like you look over the counter of the bar and it's you there. And you go to yourself, what are you having today? And you went, ecstasy. You go, here, this one's on us. So then what you do is you start laughing. You start thinking, now, how would I need to feel in order to do the thing I want to do? Some things require concentration. You want to be better at athletic things, different athletic things require different skills. You know, for example, soccer players shouldn't be too relaxed. You know, there's some sports you need to be really relaxed in order to do them. Some of them you need to slow time way down. And some of them, like fishing, you need to speed it up. Somebody took me fishing in Hawaii, and it was the longest day of my entire life. Think about this as a sport. You put string in the ocean and drag it behind a boat and hope the fish can find it. I don't think they're going about this right. Me, I put on diving tanks and go find the fish. Fight it out with them. That seems more like a sport. They tried to teach me golf, and it just doesn't seem like a sport. No one gets hurt. I'm just the kind of way I am. They gave me those clubs. I started thinking, yeah, we can do something with this. I said, all right, guys. Hit this guy in the nuts. And he went, whoa, wait a minute. I said, this is not a contact sport. And I went, what? Yeah, you don't get to hit each other? You have all these clubs and nobody gets to hit anyone? What kind of nonsense is that? And they said, no, this is about concentration, focus. And I went, okay. They said, oh, go out. Can you see that little hole way the fuck down there? Yeah. Got a flag over it. It's so fucking far away. He said, take this little ball and knock it in that hole. So I got in the golf cart and I drove down there, dropped the ball in there and drove back and said, hole in one. The guy said, it's against the rules. As it turns out, when they invented golf, there were no golf carts, so it actually is not against the rules. They had to change the rules after that. Because there's a way around everything. He said, no. He said, the object is to get your body to move in a way. There's a concentration, and he said, you have to rotate your hips. And he kept showing me all this stuff. However, he didn't take into account that I was left-handed. So these clubs were not going to help me. The thing was not even facing in the right direction. And I tried to do it, but my first attempt to tee off, by the way, this is at one of the most exclusive and expensive golf courses in the world. And when that strip of grass flew up into the air, this Scotsman came out of nowhere from behind a tree, yelling and screaming obscenities I couldn't understand, and began to use the clubs for violent activities. And this part I enjoyed, I had to admit. He was trying to kill me, and I was blocking blows and fencing. I grew up in Chinatown in San Francisco. I did martial arts most of my entire life. I thought, this is really fun. And I told the guy, I said, I love this. I said, you just chop some grass, and a guy comes out and you fight with him. I said, this is great. This is much better than bowling. Although, when you go bowling, they bring you cocktails. That's my idea of a sport. I like that. A bar, and you get to play. It'd be nice if you were a football player, you're a quarterback, you go into the huddle and you went, cappuccino, please. And I'll take a shot of whiskey too, Jameson's, please. You guys feeling a little more loose now? Ready, relaxed, not so much tension? For example, a lot of guys in the 60s use drugs as a way of, trying to get a date, and get girls to go home with them. And I would say, you try to use marijuana as a way to get a girl to go home with you, or worse, cocaine. They'd go home with you, but all night long. And they'd wake up in the morning, the sun would come through and burn their retinas out, and they'd go and do it again. But I tried to explain to them, if you're going to do something that's stupid, use ether. At least it'll work. To me, either that or go into the state that you want someone else to go into. See, for example, David, just imagine if I could take my attitude and stick it inside you for just an instant, then when you thought about doing this, see how easy that was? Doesn't that feel good? See, I said, fuck the psychic phenomenon. You don't need the psychic hotline. You are the psychic hotline. When you have doubts about your client's ability to change, or doubts about making a sale, you make them not buy it. Me, blinders on. Learned it from my dog. Once that attitude's in there, now, David, think about the same thing. Can you make the bad feelings come back? Can't do it, can you? It just disappears. Now, it used to take me fucking weeks to do this, because I used to try and do it with words and explanations and hour-long hypnotic inductions. Now I realize the best induction of all is to show people biologically the strings in your brain, the neurocortical pathways are just like the piano strings. You line yours up and go, that's all it takes. Depressive comes in and I look at him and go, and they go, what? And I go, I go, well, how come you came in here? And they go, I don't know. Let's go out and do something. Last depressive I worked with was his father's a doctor and referred him to me. He said he'd been in to see psychiatrists since he was 12 because he just was depressed. He's been depressed his whole life. Came and saw me one time, took over his dad's company, turned it into something that instead of losing money, ended up doing $300 million a year, sold the 80% of the stock to some health company, and for enormous amount of money. Plus, they hired him for the next 5 years to open businesses like that all over the country and gave him 75% of each one. He's now like a trillionaire. And so he decided he didn't want to do this anymore, so he bought a movie company, right? This guy was a depressive. He couldn't get out of bed. And I went, you can't get out of bed? I said, you have that much sex? He goes, oh no, I don't have sex at all. I said, would you like to? I said, all you have to do is think about it differently. And he said, well, and I went, because inside my mind, you see, having gone to all these places, the psychologists, Fritz Perls, Virginia Satir, wonderful woman. Milton Erickson, by the way, I didn't really like that well. He was a good hypnotist, but he was a feckin' idiot. I mean, that's all there was to it. 200 hours to put somebody in trance. I'm not that patient. I'll grab them by the carotid artery and knock them out faster than that. There had to be quicker ways. Plus, he believed the only cure for people was leave the hospital, get a job, get married, and send him presents. That doesn't seem like a wide range of choices. So what do you do with the bulimic that's not in a hospital? You go, okay, get a job and send me bags of vomit? I mean, that's why I couldn't work with bulimics. Bulimics, the people who are obsessed with food their entire fucking life. Last one I did took me 15 minutes. And for 3 months, she's had absolutely no problem whatsoever. You know why? Because I taught her the one thing that she hadn't thought about. Every day she thought about food. She was either anorexic or bulimic. Her whole life centered around avoiding food or eating food, binging, vomiting. It was in her weight, staring in the mirror, am I fat, am I too thin, am I this, am I that? And then she would finally go to a frenzy and she'd take enormous amounts of drugs and drink. So she had to join AA, the 13 steps that they can never remember because their memories are shot. They can always tell you the first 2 or 3, but they can never seem to recite them all. And they carry that little book around, which is this thick for 13 things. Somebody's a long-winded writer. I tell them, I like to glue all the pages closed in the book. I find that helpful for people who are alcoholics, because it's not having a fucking excuse to be an alcoholic. It's looking at booze and going, I can take it or leave it, and leaving it most of the time. That will help alcoholics. And bulimics, they need to be able to think about food and go, that's all. They need to, there's lots of things they can think about. You go, okay, let's talk about electric trains. And they go, electric trains? And I go, yeah. I said, if somebody offers you an electric train, do you go, oh, wow, I have to have it? Or I hate trains? And you go, I don't care about trains. Anchor it. And you take it and you spin that feeling round and round. And then you tell them, think about eclairs and desserts and steaks, you know. And then thinking, you know, oh, well, if you're too fat, what does that mean? I mean, what does it mean? Especially you're talking to somebody who's going to die. Their arms are this fucking skinny, you know. They look in the mirror and go, I'm too fat, right? Bad decision. They need to, like, instead go, you need to put on a little weight. They go, but what if guys won't like me? They already don't like you. You're too skinny, right? You know, as a matter of fact, if a guy doesn't like you because of your size, pick a new guy. That would be my suggestion. You know, because I got news for you, we're all going to get older. Some of us are going to age gracefully, and some of us, like me, aren't. There's no way I'm aging gracefully. You know, I've done too many things in my life to age gracefully. I've got body parts made by every plastics company in the world. You know, I get up in the morning, I have to glue my feet back on just to get them to work. So I had a doctor. I brought my wife to the hospital one time because she has a serious illness. And while I was in the emergency ward and they were giving her some treatment, the doctor looked at me and he goes, well, I want to tell you, she's going to be okay. It's just another episode, but we caught it early enough. She's not going to have problems. But he said, you look like shit. Right? And I said, what's the problem? And he said, I don't know, can I take your blood pressure? And he put this thing on my arm, and I said, what pressure would you like? And he went, and he went, good God. He said, your blood pressure is normal. And I said, yeah, can be. What were you hoping for? And he said, my wrist, and he put this thing on my finger, and he said, take your pulse. I said, what would you like, 60? And he went, yeah, right. You would never have a pulse of 60. He looked at the thing, and it said 60. And I went, 93. And it said 93. And then I went, 12. That scared the crap out of him. When it stops dropping below 20, you're ready to go into coronary arrest. But I did yoga for 30 fucking years, man. I can go into a state where they can't even detect I'm alive, right? And still I don't die. Pisses them off, too. There's people all over the planet going, won't he just fucking die? And then we won't have to think about this stuff anymore. Comes into town all the time, comes into the hospital, and when they least expect it, that's when I show up. Because some relative will always hire me. There they are, you know, doing whatever kind of thing, explaining to people about how they have to learn to live with their handicaps. Oops. I don't think so. They told my wife she'd never be able to walk again, ever. She was paralyzed from the neck down. And they said I would have to put her in an institution. And, and I looked at this guy and I said, would it be all right if I struck you as hard as I can? And he said, no. And I said, then I suggest you don't say things like that. I said, because I promised my wife she would walk again. And if you say that kind of hypnotic suggestion in front of her, I'm going to have to hurt you very badly. And he said, well, I'm sorry, my diagnosis is that. And I went and grabbed him by the throat and headbutted him, poof, like this. He stopped doing it after that. Especially since I didn't take my hand off his throat. I said, do not say things. I don't think it's a good idea to give people bad suggestions, especially yourself. You're going to tell yourself things, David? You need to have a voice that sounds like you mean it. In Mexico, there's a phrase called "Los grandes huevos." This means very large balls. And if you're going to function on this planet, whether you're a man or a woman, you need to have that attitude that goes with knowing that you can do things easy, you can do them as a hard way, but you're never going to stop. You become relentless, ferocious. You say to yourself, well, yes, people say that you can't control your heart rate. That's bullshit. These yogas do it all the time. And they say, oh, it takes centuries to learn to do it. Well, dude's time distortion. You know, why not? Go in and practice 5 years, but do it in an hour. There's no reason why you can't. This weekend, you'll discover you have changed the way you feel about a lot of things. People are going to say stuff. Like you'll hear people, they go, oh, I never could be a happy person. And you'll start laughing. That should be your natural reaction. Demonstrate. You know, paranoid schizophrenics, I scare the piss out of them. Right? They're all trying to handle them with kid gloves. I knock on their door, lightly. You hear footsteps going back and forth. You go, scratch on the door. Finally, they'll open the door and they'll go, what? I'll go, and I get in and I go, they're after us. Bang, close the door. Look around like this and go, they're behind the curtains. And they'll rip the curtains back. And you go, under the bed. And they'll look under the bed. And you go, in the drawer. And in the drawer. And you go, under the matchbook. And they'll pick it up. And you go, this is not going to be a person under a matchbook. And at the moment they feel like a total fucking idiot, you anchor it. And then you tell them, spin that feeling of stupidity enough that you feel like you don't want to do dumb things again. You want to do good things. Man, the best way to do it with your clients is to tell them the truth. Because there's always that point at which I look at them and I say, have you done this often enough, do you think? You know, people, I had a guy who told me he was disappointed with life. And I said, cool. How do you know exactly when to be disappointed? He said, oh, I'm disappointed with everything. I said, so I'm a fucking disappointment, I am I? And he went, well, no, not you. And I went, okay, that's one thing. Think of another. And he went, well, I love my car. And I said, really? What kind of car is it? He goes, I designed it myself. And I said, I said, how about your socks? He goes, well, I'm very disappointed. I could never find socks that make me happy. I go through the store for hours trying to find perfect socks, and I never can. Life is disappointing. I said, I got it in one nutshell. This guy doesn't know the difference between things you look for and things you design. You design a car, but building your own socks is just too much trouble. But guess what I know about is his biggest problem is going to be? I said, you're probably single, huh? And he went, oh, yeah, I'm single. And I said, because when you meet a woman, she just won't act the way you want her to, will he? And he said, well, you know, I have an idea of what the perfect woman would be. And I try to tell women to act that way, but they just won't do it. That's not how it works, guys. They have the pictures, we perform the behaviors. And if you don't enjoy it, you're just going to suffer your whole life. As soon as you accept it, life gets good. You know, you learn the mantra. You know, these guys do these mantras for years and years. I learned mine. Yes, dear. I practice at night. I go inside and meditate deeply, go, yes, dear, yes, dear, yes, dear. But you see, I think that's good. And as long as you feel good about it, what the fucking problem is there? You know, it doesn't mean I do anything. You know, I don't have good enough memory these days. What was I talking about? But then your memory has slipped more in this weekend than you could possibly imagine. I kept coming back to things, and you guys didn't even know we'd left. And suddenly you went, oh yeah, what about that? See, it sounds like my mind is all over the place, and it is. And I want your mind to be the same way, because if you start looking ahead and planning, you get a lot more than if you start thinking about the shit that happened to your life. You go, well, when I was 5 years old, I broke my foot. Let's think about that for an hour. I was in elementary school, I couldn't run as fast as other people. They called me a fat kid. Yeah, I'll think about that for hours. How in the fuck is that going to help you? You know, forget about that fucking crap. Start thinking about what you want your life to be like every fucking moment. You're going to light the candle, you know, pull out into the fast lane, put the fun meter all the way down and make sparks off the guardrail? Or are you going to go back and go into your office and go, well, how was your week? And the person goes, well, I still didn't find anybody I could introduce myself to. I'm nervous. And then you're going to go, well, how do you feel about that? Or are you going to go, you fucking idiot? You know, I go, let's go out and do it now. That's the way I do. I take them with me. Drag them out of the office, kicking and screaming. The elevator phobics, we're off to the elevator. We just sit in front of it and watch the doors open and close. And I go, pretty soon you're going to have to go in there. So you better fucking get rid of the fear now. Because when we get part of the way up, I'll press the fucking stop button and cut it off. You'll be in there forever. And then they'll have to take you out with some fucking thing up the tube. That'll be the worst nightmare of your fucking life. You might die today. If you try to leave the hotel, you'll be dead before you get a step. I go, wouldn't it be better to just be fucking tired of having this stupid fear and just look at yourself until you just look totally, you're afraid of it. Room doors. Excuse me. I put chocolate on chairs. Right? This woman who ate so much chocolate, she gave herself toxic poisoning. She had jaundice. Her doctor sent her to me and said this one is going to die if she doesn't stop. She was eating 4 to 5 pounds of chocolate a day. It's horrible. I mean, you know, it's bad for your diet, but you can poison yourself with water by drinking too much of it. And she said, if I even think about chocolate, or I see an ad in a magazine, I have to eat chocolate. So I said, put this chocolate bar in front of her. And I said, look at the chocolate bar. And she started to get up, and I slapped her. I said, that's my chocolate bar. I've had it for 4 years. And just to make sure she doesn't eat it, I tell her, and I piss on it at least once a day. And re-wrap it back up. She still wanted to eat it. And I said, now, do you realize this thing has got more choice in its behavior than you do? I said, don't you feel like a stupid fucking idiot? You're willing to die for a pissed-on chocolate bar? Right? And she goes, well, I feel stupid. And I said, not stupid enough. Let's take that feeling and whirl it up till you feel like a fucking complete idiot. Till that thing kicks in and you go, no more. A lot more choices, a lot more about how to look at it and go, take it or leave it. You know, some things you just have to take that way. Some things you have to just totally have an aversion to. See, in the Hebrew Bible, actually there were 15 commandments, not 10. The Christians lost 5 of them somewhere. They didn't like those ones. But that one about, shall not commit adultery, in ancient Hebrew it says, thou shalt not commit adultery with thy neighbor's wife, because that's a bad idea. Thou shalt not commit adultery at work. Bad idea. But in those days, if you went down the road a ways, that was okay. To me, that's not okay. When you make commitments, you should keep them for one reason. Because you made the commitment. And if you want to feel good, the easiest way to do it is to do the right thing for the right reason. Now, if you're not enjoying the relationships you're having, you have 2 choices. One is to end it, and the other is to change what you're doing. Because it will always change the other person. You see, and if you go into such a deep state of wanton pleasure that everything they do makes you happy, they can't stay in a bad mood. It's impossible. If I could just look at people and make them drop into a deep trance, imagine what happens if you go inside and click the hormones and the pheromones inside your brain and spray them at the person you're supposed to be in love with. They can't look at it's because my wife will come in and she'll be upset about things. She goes, I couldn't find a place to park and blah, 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 blah. And I look at her and go. She goes, don't look at me that way. And I go. She goes, oh, shit. She goes, I'm going in the other room. And I go. Because if you understand biology and you understand yogurt, then understanding people is easy. Now, what I would hope that you would get here, do you have your certificates? They give you your certificates? No, they didn't? Somebody here wasn't paying attention. But take out your certificate. If you don't have it, pretend like you have it. Take your certificate, place it on the top of your head like this. Point down, forward, in the front. Right. Remind you of anything? Now, repeat after me. I promise to take the skills I have learned here and to make my life a better place. And not to become a big dickhead like so many other people stuck at various levels of Richard's development. I christen you the class of 2003. Thank you. Ow! Now, I'd like to take a couple moments, and I'd like to thank a few people. I'd like to start, of course, with the people that assisted us here. Will you stand up? The people that work for Kate and for the Institute here in Ireland. Guys, stand up. Raise your hands up like this so they know who you are. And will my two co-teachers come up here, please? Owen. You don't need the microphones. You forgot the fucking chairs. That was the only instruction I gave you today. Sorry. I know, you fucked up. See? Positive reinforcement. Owen's been saying I'm sorry ever since he got here, because I make sure if people make mistakes, they know about them. I point every detail out at things, because I learned to do that in school. I went to school, because I went to college. I had 2 PhDs. And all they ever told me was everything I did that was wrong. They pointed out every word I misspelled. They don't put the mark next to the word you spell right. They circle the one you spell wrong. I mean, constantly they do this to you. And I think the way to get better at things is to notice what works and to use it. For the rest of your life. Maybe the next one, too. Why stop once you're on a roll? Keep going. Now, we wanted to leave you with just one other thought. I also wanted to thank Kate. Kate did a great job of putting this together. And, of course, my great sound guy for her. Because otherwise, of an event... Like many events, the years I've had community youth, and single most important thing that I can have mentioned to you. The other thing is we wanted to leave you with one last chance to do something different. So put your feet on the floor, take a deep breath, because